Well, good morning, everybody. Glad that you are here with me. I'm Mike Barra. I'm your host on the Seahawk Boys Fearless and Stupid NFL blog. Great to be here with you guys. And it is a kind of a calm, sunny morning here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Um, just trying to create some more content for the channel. What I thought I would do is come in here and do a one round NFL mock draft for all the teams. Excuse me, with no trades, just like if everybody stuck where they were, they had to make a pick. Who would they pick, including, of course, the Seattle Seahawks? Just want to remind everybody to head over to the Seahawk Boys Fearless and Stupid NFL blog, which is one of my favorite sites. And especially, I think it's important to check out this article, The Case Against Tom Brady, or Why the Ideal Gas Law is a Crock. It is the most comprehensive analysis of the Tom Brady Deflategate incident, which proves that there is no such thing really as the ideal gas law, and that Tom Brady was complicit in a conspiracy to deflate footballs for his football games, and that it definitely helped his performance. Let's be clear about one thing. I believe Tom Brady is the GOAT. I believe he's the greatest of all time. All this Patrick Mahomes bullshit just makes me want to puke. But he is the greatest of all time. There's no question. But he's also a cheater. And the thing about cheaters is they cheat even if they don't have to. And it's really interesting how once the NFL quarterbacks were able to handle their game balls in 2007, that Tom Brady's quarterback ratings and his performances just skyrocketed. I mean, basically before they took and as you can see, it's a very extensive article. Before they allowed the quarterbacks to start manipulating their own footballs, um, Tom Brady was Trent Dilfer. Wasn't really anything particularly special. So it's pretty interesting as you go back through that stuff. Okay. What we're going to do for this particular mock draft is we're going to use the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator, which is this great one that has automatic trades. Some people like others better. They like the Pro Football Focus one. That has some interesting features, but it has some other features I don't like as much. And we're going to use primarily their rankings of players as they stand now. Now, we've got some important football games coming up. The Senior Bowl, I think Spencer Rattler's going to play at the Senior Bowl, and I think he's going to leap into the first round by the time we get done with that. So, we're going to look at that, but we're going to not just use the Pro Football Network database, but we are also going to, let me just double check. Yeah, it's there. We are also going to use Rob Staten's NFL draft blog, which I think is a great site. If you Seahawks draft blog, if you like the Seahawks, it's definitely a great site to go to. I'm not trying to compete with him. I can't. He does things at a very deep level, but he doesn't tolerate criticism very well, or disagreement. He is very thin-skinned, but he's a really smart guy, and he thinks about football the same way I do, and I like that. He's got a mock-up. I thought, well, I'm not going to go as extensive as this, and I'm going to be doing some mock drafts with my brother, Dave Barra, the other Seahawk Boy Dave, later on, but that's a great place to go, is the Seahawks draft blog, and he also has a horizontal board, which I've zoomed up so you can see it better, where he rates players, and he's been really good at finding certain people and advocating for certain players that he just finds. Abe Lucas is a prime example. There's a guy who's played at a near Pro Bowl level when he's been healthy. He didn't go until the third round. Staten had him as a first round pick. He has first round talent. There's no doubt about that. I think the issue with him right now is the injuries, and maybe that's why he didn't go until the third round. Maybe there were some people that were concerned about his knees. I don't know, but I do know that Staten has been very good at identifying certain players the Minnesota Vikings new middle linebacker Ivan Pace last year. He had the Seahawks taking him in the third or fourth round as a young linebacker. They didn't touch him, they didn't bother with him. He was an undrafted free agent, and he was a star for the Vikings on defense this year. So Rob knows what he's talking about in general, and I think that's gonna be interesting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use his horizontal board as kind of a counterpoint to what's on the NFL Network draft blog or draft mock draft simulator. So with that said, let's share the tab over here and get going. And start out by picking the number of rounds. That's one. The draft speed is normal. We need to know that. We're going to select all the teams, meaning we are going to be picking for all the teams, and we're going to hit let's draft. Now, the first pick overall is the Chicago Bears. There are some rumors out there. There's some hints that Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, doesn't want to go to Chicago, but I think they have no choice but to draft him. He's, his ceiling, his floor is Cam Newton, a mediocre guy who doesn't win big games because he didn't really play in big games, doesn't handle pressure well. His ceiling is generational talent. So even though they already have Justin Fields, I don't see any way they can avoid drafting Caleb Williams. So he's going to go there, even if he makes some stink about not wanting to play in Chicago. I think they still take him. They may trade him after that, but bottom line is that he's definitely going. Now, this is where it gets interesting because the Washington Redskins are picking next, and I refuse to call them the Commanders or anything else. They're the Redskins. They will always be the Redskins, and fuck anybody who doesn't agree with that. That's an interesting situation because the first three teams really have to draft a quarterback. Mac Jones hasn't worked out in New England, and the Redskins are in a great position at number 2. But the quarterback, the quarterback that Pro Football Network draft stack has is Drake May of North Carolina. It's interesting because as you look at Rob's horizontal board, he's got Caleb Williams as a blue chip. Would take in round 1 as Jaden Daniels. He has Drake May as a second round pick, along with Rattler, Nix Pettix. JJ McCarthy's a third rounder. And I kind of agree with all that, except I think at least 2 or 3 of these guys here in this, well, maybe all 4 of those guys are going to end up in the first round. And the reason for that is that when it comes to drafting quarterbacks, you have to reach. You always have to reach. It's always a reach. People say don't reach in the draft. It's not a good idea to reach in the draft, but the reality is you have to when you take a quarterback, because unless you're picking number 1 overall and there's a consensus number 1 pick, you're reaching. And that's just the way it is. I mean, you could say the Bears reached when they took Justin Fields at number 11. I personally love Justin Fields myself. And one of the reasons why I loved him last year, my QB number 1 was CJ Stroud. I was adamant about the Seahawks jumping up to the number 1 pick and drafting CJ Stroud. And the reason for that was because he played at a big school. He had all the athletic talents and skills you could want, the accuracy, the arm strength, the size. I didn't want another 5'10" quarterback like, Russell Wilson, even though I love Russell Wilson. I think he's the greatest player in Seahawks history. I didn't want those problems. So the other thing that's a major factor is played in big games. And those things are very important, I think, when you're doing this kind of analysis. But let's slide back over here to the NFL draft board. And we're going to take what these guys have as their 8th player. Jaden Daniels, quarterback from LSU, the 8th overall player. Staten has him higher than that. Staten has him, let's go back. Yeah, we take him round 1. So he's somewhere in there. I think he's a guy with an awful lot of talent, and okay, I'm getting notifications. He's a guy with an awful lot of talent, and you just can't overemphasize that for the Redskins. So they finally get their quarterback. They've been looking for one for a while. They should have taken Justin Herbert a few years ago instead of Chase Chase Young. So that was a big mistake on their part. Okay, number three, the New England Patriots. They also need to take a quarterback. There needs quarterback, wide receiver, edge. They don't probably want to take Drake May, but there's no question he's a talent. And you know who blew this draft so bad? It's the Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. I was impressed with Ewers against Washington in the college football playoff and the Sugar Bowl. The guy is an absolute fool because he would go top three, four, or five in this draft, and he's an idiot for going back to Texas. That weakens the quarterback class a little bit. It would have been one of the best in years, and nothing good. His stock will not possibly be any higher next year than it is this year. So absolutely foolish of Quinn Ewers not to jump into this draft, but it's too late now. Drake May, so we go quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, bang, bang, bang. Drake May, I don't know what the new regime is going to be like in New England. I know that the new coach up there, Gerard Mayo, is an overt racist and said a bunch of racist things. Had I been Bob Kraft, when I heard some of that shit at the press conference, I would have said, okay, I changed my mind. You're fired, and found another coach. But they let Bill Belichick go, and Belichick hasn't gone anywhere. Okay. Number 4 overall, Arizona. Arizona's got 2 picks. They have Kyler Murray. I don't think they're happy with Kyler Murray, but they're stuck with him for a while longer because his contract is crazy bad. Maybe we'll look at that before we get done with this live stream. I don't think they can get rid of him for another year or two, so they are stuck with him. And there really isn't a quarterback. If Jaden Daniels was there, if Caleb Williams fell to number 4, they probably would be forced to take it. But as it stands now, instead, they're going to take a wide receiver, an offensive weapon for Kyler Murray, which is something that they need. And it's really interesting when you look at it because the consensus is Marvin Harrison Jr. of Ohio State is the guy to go here, that he is the top draft pick. Oh, by the way, you can find me on Twitter X as Seahawk Boy Mike B, at Seahawk Boy Mike B. Please follow me on Twitter X, like and subscribe to this channel. And just because I'm trying to get it going and have fun, just want to get into the Seahawks conversation a little bit. So absolutely do that. Take care of it. But, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the consensus top wide receiver, and he probably is. But when you look again over at the stack board, that horizontal board that Rob put together, Harrison, Odunze, Malik Neighbors are all blue chip players. And a lot of people, there's some people that think Odunze might slide in there and become the first wide receiver taken off the board. I don't necessarily think that is correct, but there is some thought along those lines. However, I think it's been Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Arizona Cardinals for quite some time, and I don't see any shift in that. Now, this is really where it really gets interesting because they have their quarterback in Los Angeles. They have a new coach. They have Jim Harbaugh, and they have needs like safety, corner, offensive tackle, center, defensive tackle. The question now is who is the next best player in this draft? And Harbaugh is more of a defensive coach than an offensive coach, even though he's a quarterback. Offensive line is important, but there are a ton of good offensive linemen in this draft. If we slide back over to Rob Staten's horizontal board, look at all these round 1 tackles: Guyton, Latham, Fuaga, Fashanu, Mims, Alt, and then a bunch of guys in the second round. So there's going to be somebody at the top of the second round that they can pick up on the offensive line. There's centers, there's guards. There are a lot of good offensive linemen. So I think they can, here in this particular case, I think that the Chargers can afford to go with more of a wild card pick. And I think I'm going to go with Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. Big guy, 6'3", 225, wide receiver, large enough to block, very, very highly thought of. And he's one of Rob's blue chip players. So again, the top of the draft, you draft for need if you need a quarterback. Otherwise, you go with the blue chip guy. And I think Brock Bowers adds something that gives a new target for Justin Herbert. And then in their second round, with their second round pick, if they have one, they might not have one, but I think they have one. You get an offensive lineman. You get some offensive linemen and some defensive linemen to help your overall team needs. Okay, the New York Giants team needs running back, offensive guard, safety, linebacker, wide receiver. Running back would be great here, but they don't have any great running backs in this draft. There really aren't any. Most people think that this draft is going to be basically run out of gas by the third round. That there's not really any third day depth, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks are going to be really good. So it becomes a question of the Giants need to get one of these blue chip players for this blue chip draft position. And there's only a few. There's only a few on here. There's Jared Verse and Chop Robinson, who are edge players. Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers have all gone already. Jaden Daniels, Javier Leggete, some other guys. So some of these offensive linemen fall into the first round category, but don't fall into the blue chip category. So I think we're going to have to pick from this blue chip category here and slide back over. And I think the Giants, it's not their top need. They could use an offensive lineman, but the offensive linemen really aren't rated that high. Let's go with Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver from LSU, to give Daniel Jones another target. Now, could they take a quarterback here? Yeah, they could. If one of the top three falls to them, I think they could definitely take a quarterback there, but I don't think they're going to. On the other hand, the Tennessee Titans, they have their new head coach, and they have their quarterback. They got Will Levis last year, guy I wanted the Seahawks to take at 5 or 20. I actually wanted them to trade up and take CJ Stroud, but they should have taken Will Levis with one of the other picks. So they got their quarterback. They knew who they're built. They know who they're building with. And again, you look at the blue chip board again, and when you're up here, you got to take these guys: Dunze, Neighbors, Verse, Chop Robinson. Could they use an edge? And Rob's got Peyton Wilson over here, linebacker, as a blue chip player, but a guy who most people think is going to fall into the second round at least because of injury concerns and some other issues. So to my mind, if we're looking at the blue chip guys, Rome Odunze is still there, and Jared Verse and Chop Robinson are still there, and there hasn't been a defensive player taken off the board yet, at least in this version of the NFL draft. It's quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver. They definitely could use an edge. I think they need offensive linemen more. However, that value is going to be there more in the second round. So I think they end up with Rome Odunze, the big, tall, fast wide receiver, the guy who replaces it was an AJ Brown that they traded for bizarre reasons. And they give back to Mike Vrabel, they give back the player they took from Mike Vrabel to their new head coach, who I forget who their new head coach is right now. So anyway, is it Canales? Did Canales go? No, I forget who went to Tennessee. All right, number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons need a quarterback. There isn't one. We're taking at number 8. It's a possibility that they will trade out of the 8th pick and try to drop down into the middle of the first round to take one of those mid-first round quarterbacks. But it's risky if you do that, because if the guy you want is there, you definitely, you better take him because he's a quarterback and somebody could jump up and grab him ahead of you. Having said that, the Falcons, their biggest needs are quarterback, edge, defensive tackle, cornerback, and wide receiver. No defensive players have come off the board yet. They've drafted a lot of offensive players. They got the good tight end. They got a running back. They got some receivers. They may be adding a quarterback later in this draft or trading back up. That, of course, is not something we're going to really deal with here. So I think that they go with one of the top defensive players that are in that elite category. And again, Rob Staten has Jared Verse and Chop Robinson there. So I'm going to go here and find myself Jared Verse, the edge from Florida State, is going to go to Atlanta. and their unbelievably shitty new head coach, Raheem Morris. They picked Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. That is idiocy, and they're going to struggle. So now we go to the Chicago Bears. The Bears have already picked once. They took Caleb Williams at the top of the draft. You can't take a top young quarterback and then not draft offensive players to support him. That's what the Bears did with Justin Fields. He became very successful in spite of that. Um, and the logical thing would be at this point, Chicago, I would think, would have traded Fields by now. So they know what they got for him. They probably, I think they can get a first round pick out of Fields the way he played the last part of the season. However, we can't assume that in this draft. So we're going to say, okay, look, we're looking at this as if they don't have another pick for Justin Fields in this first round or even in the second round. So they're going to have to go back and actually take another player. If you look at Rob Staten's elite board, the only guy left is Chop Robinson out of the elite players. Peyton Wilson has red flags on him, not worth a risk you want to take there. But a lot of these other offensive linemen are first round guys. You've got guards, you've got tackles. I think it would be great to take Chop Robinson right here. However, the reality is that what they need to do is support Caleb Williams by getting some guys to block for him. So let's go down to the offensive tackles and take the top guy, Tyler Guyton. He's 40th here. Staten thinks he's first round pick in the top of the first round pick. We're going to take him. He'll probably move up as they go through the evaluation process. So they take the offensive tackle. Now, the New York Jets also need offensive tackle. They need wide receiver. They need defensive tackles. There aren't really any super top wide receivers left. There's some good players that I believe are going to be round one type players. There's Javier Leggett. There's some other people like, is it Javier Leggett? Is that how you pronounce it? But I think the practical thing for them here is to go with the offensive tackle, and the next one on the list is J.C. Latham from Alabama. So we'll put him with the Jets. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. Up at number 11, the Minnesota Vikings. Their top team needs are safety, cornerback, the defensive guys, a quarterback is a possibility, a running back, a linebacker. They could take a big mistake. They could take a big risk here, but I think as you look at their defense, they still could use talent. If you have a guy who's an elite talent who's fallen to you at number 11 in Chop Robinson, that's where Staten has him as one of the elite difference makers. I think you take him. So you take a guy for the defensive side of the ball. Now we're looking at the Denver Broncos, and they're really interesting sitting at number 12. They're going to have pushed Russell Wilson out by then. I think Wilson probably ends up in Las Vegas. They could use a quarterback here, but they have needs on defense at corner and edge and offensive guard and offensive tackle and quarterback. As we go back and look at Staten's big board, all the elite guys are off the board. Quarterbacks are a possibility here. You've got, again, a lot of good offensive linemen. I think that they're going to have to go get a quarterback. And Sean Payton is older and not a lot of people like him. I think this is his last chance. I think that he takes a risk, and I think he goes with a quarterback. And the top guy on this list is Michael Penix Jr., a guy that the Seahawks might have been interested in. And he goes to the Denver Broncos at number 12. He's got a huge arm. He's not as mobile as you might think, but he has a huge, huge, huge arm, and he will definitely be in the mix in the mid to late first round. And why not jump on him early if you're the Broncos and get a guy for the future, because you aren't going to go with Russell Wilson. So let me go back. Yeah, double check. Okay, so now we're sitting at number 13 with the Raiders. Again, they need corners and safeties and tackles and guards. They also need a quarterback. Um, I think if the Raiders take a quarterback, they're going to want the athletic kind of guy, the guy who can make a difference. I think that they are now with the Penix pick. Now they're going to get nervous. They were probably thinking they could get a pretty good quarterback in the second round. They have a guy there that they like, Latham, I want to say his name is, a starter that they're fairly comfortable with. I think Jimmy G is still under contract. Uh, but there's no blue chip guys worth taking here. So I think they're going to pull a wild card out. I think they're going to freak out a little bit. And I think they're going to take Bo Nix, the quarterback from Oregon, because there is a run on QBs at this point. Now we move to the New Orleans Saints. What do the New Orleans Saints need? Well, they need tackles, offense and defense, guards, linebackers, running backs, a basic front seven stuff. If we go back over and look at Rob Staten's board, we've got Tyler Guyton off. The next tackle on his list is Talise Fugawa. I don't see any problem with taking him or Troy Fontenot. I think, you can never have enough good offensive tackles. So I am going to go down and take, where are the offensive tackles? I'm going to go down and take Talise Fugawa, the offensive tackle from Oregon State, is going to go to the New Orleans Saints. Now, up next are the Indianapolis Colts. Well, the Colts have their quarterback. They have everything they need. They can't rush the passer. That's one of their big problems. They need a running back to replace Jonathan Taylor. There are no running backs, first round, worthy running backs at all. So I think then we start looking at, as we go to the horizontal board, we look at edge guys. I think it's time to maybe take a risk with Laitu Latu or Braylon Trice. I think Braylon Trice is going to definitely move up and be a very, very interesting player. Is he listed as an edge or a defensive end? Linebacker? I don't have him at linebacker. Interesting. Oh, no, there he is, 53. But I think they're going to go with Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA. That's a solid Indianapolis Colts kind of pick. So the Seahawks now, if they haven't traded for Justin Fields, then let me tell you, I'd prefer they take Justin Fields. Here, there's left. Going to have to take a quarterback, and they're running out of options. Basically, it's J.J. who sucks, Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, and then you get into the guys that are way down the list. Spencer Rattler is rated 121 on the Pro Football list. If you slide over to Rob, he is right this, and then pick a after. You cannot down in a second right back and taking Rattler to the Seattle Seahawks, assuming they don't trade for just my first choice. The quarterback March 8th, 2022. When they did Russell Wilson, they have done nothing to address it. I better finally this time around is the guy that I would take. He can all the talent one. The knock on Rattler is character issues, which I don't have really panned out. Rattler's supposed to, at one time he was thought of as the best quarterback in the country and an overall pick. Act South Carolina, and I think that his performances at the combine and the All-Star games are really, really going to help him. So now we're sliding back to the Jaguars. They need cornerbacks. They need edges. They also need some offensive players. And there is one guy who stood on Rob Staten's board, which as an elite player or near elite player, which we have not really talked about, Troy Fontenot. I'm going to give the guard, the inside offensive guard to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Troy Fott, now the Washington Husky, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, so now we're into the sector players for sure. Um, say corners, wide receivers, offensive tackles, edge, tight end. They Joe Burrow. Running backs, they've got to get them wide receivers, they've got to get them tight ends, they've got to get them offensive linemen. I think their biggest problem really has been the offensive linemen. And looking at the list of offensive linemen, uh, you know, Joe Alt is the top guy here. Fashanu from Penn State. These are guys that could really help. The Bengals have a good defense. The Seahawks played them this year, and they have a really good defense. They could add to that in later rounds. I think for them, the best guys here, the blue chip guys, are the offensive tackles. You could go with the Notre Dame tackle, the Penn State tackle. I'm going to go with Joe Alt, the Notre Dame tackle, and push him up there. Now, the LA Rams team needs offensive tackles. Let's just give them the Penn State tackle because they need to support those guys. Now you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their number one need is offensive tackle. If you go to the list of offensive tackles, there are some guys listed here that if you slide over to Rob Staten's board, haven't gone yet. Fashanu, Mims are in there, and neither one of them has gone yet. We're going to give them Amaris Mims. So we got a mini run on offensive linemen, 4 in a row, 3 offensive tackles in a row, because that's what they need. Now we come to another team, the Miami Dolphins, who are in desperate need of offensive line help. And again, as we go back to, it's possible this guy's rated as a guard. We go back to Rob Staten's horizontal board. Oh, we are looking at the horizontal board. I'm sorry. We didn't show you Fashanu and Mims going to Georgia. But as we go back to the horizontal board, one of the guys that's still on there is Fashanu. Did Fashanu? Did I already send Fashanu? Yeah. No? Did Fashanu already go higher up? Yeah, he already went. So we're looking at offensive tackles, but we're not really seeing anybody that we desperately like. They also need guards. Well, the best guards are gone. They also need cornerback, safety, defensive tackle. You know, if I'm the Dolphins, they gave up 70 points in one game. I'm going to go overall. I'm taking the Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama. He's a good, solid edge player. And I think that fits. Team needs the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a safety, corner, wide receiver, 2 wide receivers. There are some good wide receivers in this draft. I think Keon Coleman is going to be next. Let's see where Rob has Keon Coleman. Yeah, definitely has him. Jacob Cowing, Keon Coleman as second round or first round players. So we're going to go back and take Keon Coleman. They could go defensive tackle. Now, here's the thing. They have Zerhan Newton is the top defensive tackle. That is a need. They couldn't stop the run. But wide receivers are a real problem. So let's go with Keon Coleman and get a defensive tackle in the second round. Now, 23rd, the Houston Texans. They need wide receivers. They need edges. They need offensive guards, safeties, corners. If you look again at Rob's horizontal board, Jacob Cowing is his top receiver out there. And you've got in the second round, you've got Javier Ligeti, who is a way down at 36 on this list. They're going to jump up. They're going to take the wide receiver to give to CJ Stroud. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, 24. Well, what do the Cowboys need? They need linebackers. They need defensive ends. They need to get bigger on the defensive line. They need to stop the run. So we're going to put Zerhan Newton, the guy that the Eagles passed on, for the Dallas Cowboys to try to beef up their defense a little bit. The Green Bay Packers, they need tackles. They need safeties. They need guards. They need all kinds of stuff. I think it is not beyond the realm of possibility that they would take a defensive back here. I think most of the offensive linemen are kind of a little bit overrated here. Let's take a look over at Rob Staten's board. See who we have at tackle. Samatalia, Patrick Paul, Roger Rosengarten. Um, it depends on how desperate the Packers are to get an offensive lineman. And, again, I think there's been a run here. I think we'll go to the offensive tackles and we'll take Sumi Ataya from BYU. We'll go to the Green Bay Packers. He's the kind of guy that they like. Okay, 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It says their top need is quarterback. I don't really buy that their top need is quarterback because I think Baker Mayfield's going to come back to them. So now we're looking at offensive tackle, offensive guard, offensive center. What becomes the issue here then is who is the top rated offensive player, offensive lineman left, and it's Graham Barton from Duke. So we're going to go with that. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, they took the wide receiver in the first round, Marvin Harrison Jr. Now they're sitting here in a second. There hasn't been a corner taken yet. So if you go to the overall ranking, Teron Arnold is a top-rated corner. They can use a cornerback. They'll get one. The Buffalo Bills also need a corner. They're going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry, or let's go with Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs, my least favorite team on the planet. They need wide receivers. There are some guys out there that are pretty good players. We're going to give them Brian Thomas from LSU. The Detroit Lions, everybody's favorite team. They need cornerback. They need safety. We'll give them Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Well, let's give them Kool-Aid McKinstry. The number 31 overall pick is the San Francisco 49ers. They could use offensive linemen. They could use defensive linemen. They could use all kinds of players. They have a couple of relatively expensive linebackers. Let's slide over to over the cap. By the way, if you don't go to Over the Cap, the NFL site, it's the best salary cap analysis site out there. Go to the cap calculator. Oh God, come on! Get this ad off of here. And I wish these fucking idiots would stop posting to my Telegram. Let's go to the 49ers. I want to see how much money they have invested in linebackers, and I really want these ads to come off here. Yeah, Fred Warner has a cap hit of almost $25 million next year. Who's their other top? Dre Greenlaw. They could cut him and move on from him. He's 27. They could look at a linebacker. It's a possibility because what you want to do is go for value here. And I think the value, Jeremiah Trotter comes in, can replace Dre Greenlaw and be your top linebacker of the future. He's a great value there. The Baltimore Ravens are next. Their biggest need, it says, is corner. I don't think they have a lot of needs, but they're going to win the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure. So, and we just gave Jeremiah Trotter to 49ers. Let's give Nate Wiggins, the corner from Clemson, to the Baltimore Ravens. And that is it. That ends our draft. So go to the full results of the draft. Let's go back through it. We've got Caleb Williams going to Chicago, and assuming that Chicago trades Justin Fields to somebody else who's quarterback needy in here. Russell Wilson could end up in Vegas. They could trade Justin Fields to the Broncos, to the Seahawks. A lot of teams that need quarterbacks, but they end up with Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback from LSU, goes to the Washington Redskins. Drake May, the quarterback from North Carolina, goes to the New England Patriots. And their racist head coach, Gerard Mayo. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to the Cardinals. That's a good pick for them. Brock Bowers, the tight end, goes to Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles. Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver, goes to the New York Giants. Give them somebody to throw the ball to for Daniel Jones. Rome Odunze, the Washington wide receiver, goes to the Tennessee Titans, replacing A.J. Brown there. Jared Verse, the edge, goes to Atlanta because the Falcons just can't trade out of there. I've heard rumors that they're willing to offer the 8th pick for Justin Fields. That seems a little high, but it's possible. Tyler Guyton, the tackle, goes to the Chicago Bears. Probably a little early to take the tackle, but they did it anyway. J.C. Latham, the other next tackle, goes to the New York Jets. Chop Robinson, the edge, goes to the Vikings. Michael Penix Jr. in a surprise, the quarterback, goes to Washington. And what I think too is that if when Fields gets traded, that's going to move some of these quarterbacks down a little bit. Bo Nix, the quarterback, goes to the Raiders because they've just got to have one. Talise Fuaga, the offensive tackle, next one on the board, goes to the Saints. That's a very pedestrian pick. Laiatu Latu, the edge, goes to the Indianapolis Colts. Looks like they have a good chance to get their edge guy. Spencer Rattler goes to my Seahawks, the quarterback. We got to have a quarterback. Penix is off the board. Nix is off the board. We're running out of quarterbacks. I, again, would trade for Justin Fields in a heartbeat. Failing in that, I'm taking Spencer Rattler. I'll probably re-sign Geno for 1 year, even though I don't like Geno as a person very much. So he's our quarterback. He's the guy we end up going forward with, and I think he's going to be an outstanding football player. Troy Fontenot, the offensive guard, goes to the Jaguars. Joe Alt, the offensive tackle, goes to the Bengals. Fashanu Fashanu, the offensive tackle, goes to the Rams. Amaris Mims goes to for Georgia, goes to the Steelers. So you got a run of 4 or 5 offensive linemen in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. In the middle of the draft, the Dolphins can't get in on that, so they take Dallas Turner. I think the Eagles' choice is really interesting. It comes down to either a wide receiver, where they take Keon Coleman, or Zerhan Newton, the best defensive tackle in the draft. They could really use some help stopping the run because they were terrible at it, but maybe they'll take some guys later. Javier Legette, the wide receiver from South Carolina, goes to the Houston Texans in a pick that they picked up from no, they didn't pick up that. They had to give up a pick in a trade. So they got them CJ Stroud. That was the second Cardinals pick, I believe. Zerhan Newton does go to the Dallas Cowboys, also a team that needs to be able to stop the run of the middle. The Packers take Kingsley Sumatea from BYU, offensive tackle. A bunch of offensive tackles go in this draft. Graham Barton, the next best guard on the board, goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to help protect Baker Mayfield. Teron Arnold, the first defensive back, comes off the board for the Arizona Cardinals. They had a good draft. They got a wide receiver and a corner. Cooper DeJean, the Bills have always needed corners. They need more, so they will go with Cooper DeJean. Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver from LSU, goes to the Chiefs. It's going to be a wide receiver. We just don't know which one. And the Lions, who everybody is praying for tomorrow in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers, take Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner from Alabama. And then Jeremiah Trotter, the linebacker, goes to San Francisco. That, their roster's pretty loaded, but it makes some sense to get a new linebacker in here, because if you look at their salary cap situation, they could actually, if they could cut or trade, they could trade Fred Warner and save $15.9 million under the salary cap for 2024. And right now they're over the cap. So it would make a lot of sense for them to do something like that and draft his replacement if his replacement is there. So, I think it's a possibility Fred Ward gets traded. Let's slide over here. It's a possibility if you do it as a post-June 1 cut, they save 15 million, almost 16 million under the cap, end up with 12,900,000 in cap space, 13 million in cap space. They could do something like that, depending on how their season finishes. So that's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. And Nate Wiggins, the pedestrian, just a pedestrian pick, the corner, best player available on the board, goes to the Baltimore Ravens, who I believe will be the world champions when it is all over. Okay, guys, that is going to wrap it up. I'm probably wrong about almost all of this, but why not just go out and do it, have some fun with it, get up early, enjoy my Saturday. I'm not going to go watch some FA Cup soccer. We already had one huge upset in the Football Association Cup, the FA Cup over there, but my team, Manchester City, won. Root for them. Thank you guys for being here, and leave, like, subscribe, comment below. Again, do not forget that I'm over on Twitter X as at Mike Bear 333, but that's not going to be sports. The Seahawk Boy at Seahawk Boy Mike Twitter at Seahawk Boy Mike B Twitter X account is brand new, just for talking about Seahawks stuff. It's going to be my Seahawks identity. Um, I have 0 viewers on this stream, but that's okay because I love you guys anyway. Thanks for being here, and let me know what you think in the comments, assuming anybody ever sees this.